Welcome back to County Connection. For this next segment, we're going to be talking about Summit County's new regulations on short-term rentals. And here to tell us about it are Kate Berg and Danelle Hood from the Summit County Planning Department. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, so in December, the Board of County Commissioners approved a new set of regulations that pertains to short-term rentals. So why don't we start off by talking about what were the goals behind these regulations?
Sure. Recently there has been a large increase in residential properties being used for short-term vacation rental lodging throughout a lot of resort communities in the country.
Right, and this has been kind of an explosion of these online platforms, right?
Right, yeah. So new online listing sites like Airbnb and VRBO have just made it really easy for people to rent their residential properties when they're not using them themselves. And so in Summit County and a lot of communities across the state, across the western U.S., we've seen a large increase in kind of commercial lodging being a use that's kind of made its way into what have historically been more residential neighborhoods in our community. And so there are benefits of that, but then there are also some impacts to the community. And so, recognizing that Summit County is very much a recreation-based tourism economy, and we do need to have folks able to visit and able to stay in places here in the county, and that's a good thing. But there are also some impacts to our residents as a result. And so over the years, we've gotten increasingly more and more local residents have been expressing concerns about this use and just asking the county to adopt some regulations to help just get a handle on that use and mitigate some of the impacts that the neighbors are seeing in their residential neighborhoods, issues with parking and noise and trash and those types of things.
Okay, great. And so, Kate, you were kind of shepherding this process that through which we developed these regulations. So can you talk a little bit about what that process looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started working on this in December of 2017. We really started talking to the board about starting to work on development of short-term rental regulations for the unincorporated county. And that really came out of our comprehensive plan update. When we were looking at updating our countywide master plan, we did a lot of public outreach in the summer of 2017, kind of spring and summer. And a couple of key issues kept rising to the top that they were really kind of front and center on our residents' minds. And those are the carrying capacity of our community. Just a lot of people, starting to feel like it's very busy. The roads are very congested. There's a lot of people in town, more and more of the year, kind of those shoulder seasons are shrinking, and it's getting much busier and much more congested. And also, this issue of short-term rentals and just the proliferation of short-term rentals really came out as something that the community wanted us to get a better handle on. And so the county commissioners directed county staff to kind of put that comprehensive master plan on hold a little bit and start working on some of these key issues that had come out of our community outreach. And so the development of short-term rental regulations was kind of number one priority. And it was good timing because every one of the towns was also starting to respond to this issue at the same time. And one thing that's kind of important to understand is that the towns are a little bit different than the county in that they have the authority to issue business licenses. So pretty much all the towns have already been issuing licenses for short-term rental, since it's like a business use. And so they had that in place, but really wanted to take a hard look at their regulations and see what else they needed to do to get a better handle on this. And so the county and the towns really launched into this effort at the same time, which provided a really nice opportunity for us all to be communicating, sharing information, understanding what each jurisdiction was looking at doing, trying to align as much as we could, trying to ensure consistency to the extent that that was possible, and also looking at using the same third-party contractor for our permitting system, for our complaint hotline, just so that no matter where you are in Summit County, it's relatively similar for people, so that they understand, there's a little bit of consistency. If you have property in the town of Breckenridge and the county, it's not going to be totally different.
Right.
So anyway,
and on the whole, it is by and large an even playing field in terms of the general scope of the regulations.
Yep, just making sure we were all trying to be consistent with the scope of the regulations, with like what the fees that are being charged for permitting, just trying to align as much as we can, and share resources for efficiency. So that worked out really nicely. And we kicked off, the county, we kicked off our process in the spring of 2018 and started doing a lot of information gathering, talking to the public, and just, trying to get our heads around how this use really functions here in our community. And then into the summer, started really taking all that input, all that information, and drafting regulations, looking at what other communities do and what would work here. And then we, kind of getting into late summer, early fall of 2018, we started presenting these draft regulations to the public for feedback, to focus groups. We had a survey out, we solicited input online, and then we had a series of meetings with our countywide planning commission and our board of county commissioners to really hash out the details of these regulations and get some new rules into our land use and development code. And those regulations ultimately were adopted by the BOCC in December of 2018.
So in addition to these regulations, individual homeowners associations, HOAs, may have regulations that go above and beyond what these Summit County STR regulations stipulate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that there might be a little bit of confusion about. So it's important for everyone to be aware if they are located within an area that's regulated by a homeowners association. They definitely, if that's in the unincorporated county, then the unincorporated county short-term rental regulations do apply. But like you said, if they are in a homeowners association and their covenants, conditions, restrictions, CC&Rs for their HOA have these regulations that kind of go above and beyond. Some HOAs in the unincorporated county actually prohibit short-term rentals. They prohibit rental of any properties for less than 30 days. And so the homeowners who own property within these HOAs need to be aware that those regulations are still in effect within those HOAs, and they do need to make sure that they're aware of that, and that the HOA has the authority to enforce those restrictions.
Right. So going through the short-term rental permit process with the county, if you pay the fee, get the permit, that doesn't give you the green light to go ahead and override your HOA regulations.
Right. With Summit County, we have the authority to enforce our own regulations in our own land use and development code. And so we don't have the authority to enforce the HOA's rules, but the HOA does.
Right.
And so it's just being aware that there's this other layer of regulations in those communities, and they need to be knowledgeable about those rules and aware that their HOA still has the right to enforce those rules.
Okay, great. So it's important then, before, if you're going to apply for a short-term rental permit in Summit County, then you should first check with your HOA to be sure that short-term rental activity is allowed.
Yes, and kind of in the spirit of sharing information and trying to educate people as much as possible, what we are going to attempt to do is, what we're asking is if any HOAs in the county do not allow short-term rentals or have specific rules for short-term rentals that go above and beyond the county rules, if you, your HOA board can contact Danelle and let her know. What we're going to try to do is just create a list of all the ones we are aware of, so that we can at least make people aware as we know of these regulations and restrictions, and they can at least be informed that they need to check into those with their HOA.
Okay, perfect. So we'll maintain that list of any HOA that contacts us and lets us know, so that folks can check, but that we can't guarantee that that's a comprehensive list. So the best idea is to go straight to the source of your HOA.
Exactly.
Okay. So Danelle, one of the cornerstones of the short-term rental program is the permit process. So tell us about that.
So the permit process is 100% online. Just go to the planning department's website on SUMMITCOuntyCO.GOV/STR. That's the URL that we're using.
Great.
Then you can click on the permit portal and fill out the application. It's super easy. We expect it to take about 20 minutes to complete online.
Okay, awesome. And so what are some of the key dates that people need to be aware of in this permit application process?
So June 1st is the deadline to submit your permit application. By June 30th, any short-term rental operating without a permit will be considered a violation of the county code.
Okay, so June 1st is a key date that people need to be focusing on if they intend to rent their property for a period of less than 30 days.
Correct.
Okay, and so what are some key things that short-term rental owners should be aware of before they start that process? Because actually completing the application may take 20 minutes, but there's a little prep that's involved, right?
So the first thing they need to do is verify that their property is actually located in unincorporated Summit County. Like Kate was saying, all of the towns have their own individual regulations, and if you're actually inside town limits, you need to apply for a short-term rental permit with one of the towns, with that applicable town. If you're in unincorporated Summit County, then you'll apply for a permit with us. So
Okay.
that's the first thing.
And then one of the implications of applying for a license or permit in the wrong jurisdiction would mean that you're paying the wrong taxes.
True. So yeah, that would be the second important thing, is to figure out what your sales tax license number is. And it's not a new tax. We're not implementing any new taxes here. This is something that people are already paying. But if they are paying for this tax in, let's say, the town of Breckenridge, but they're actually located in unincorporated Summit County, then they're actually paying more taxes than they need to. So it's important to look up your sales tax license number, make sure that it's your region indicates unincorporated Summit County.
Okay, good to know. And so where can people find both some guidance on the application, on the application and the permit process, as well as go ahead and fill it out?
So we have a ton of information on our planning department website for filling out the application, choosing your permit type. There are a few different types, so you have to determine which one applies to you. There's also very specific sales tax information on our website. If you have questions that you can't find on there, then there is contact information. You can send in an email or give us a call.
Okay, great. So some of the things that people need to be prepping ahead of time to put in their application are parking plan, occupancy limits. What are some other examples of the types of information that we're requesting on that permit application?
So yeah, the parking plan, we also have a trash collection and removal plan. I think people are getting a little bit confused about the parking plan and trash plan because it sounds much more official than what we're actually asking for. On the application, you'll find a textual field where you can type in a description of your parking plan and your trash removal plan. For the parking plan, we're just looking for the number of spaces and the location. So for example, you could say 1 unassigned space in a common parking lot for the condo building, or 2 assigned spaces in an underground parking garage. that's it. It's just, it doesn't even have to be a complete sentence.
Okay. Or I could say I have a 2-car garage and 1 outdoor parking space in my driveway.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
And there is a note about, you can upload a photo or a sketch on the next page if you want to. That's really more applicable to somebody who's requesting to deviate from our regulations.
Okay.
And then for the trash plan, we just want to ensure that you're taking wildlife into consideration and snow removal operations. So again, it's just a simple textual description of what you're already doing, and just want to make sure you're not leaving your trash out for a week for the bears to get into.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that really is one of the big concerns here in Summit County. It's one of the things that makes Summit County a really cool place to live, is that we have these amazing creatures that we're sharing this area with, and so it's their home too, and so we need to make sure that we're being responsible and taking them into account, and trash is one of the toughest issues around wildlife conflicts.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the gist of the trash plan is we just want to make sure that, like you said, trash isn't being left outside unsecured for any length of time where bears can get into it or where it can cause issues for snow plowing. So what we're asking for is just describe a plan that makes sure that that trash is either kept indoors or in a bear-proof trash container.
Okay.
And out of the right of way. And then you're only putting that trash out for collection on the day of collection and then bringing it back in.
Okay.
So just explaining what you do. But yeah, we don't need any sort of, detailed sketches drawn by a licensed architect or engineer to scale or anything like that.
Okay. No stamps of approval from
No stamping.
Your local zoo.
No, although I do think that one thing that is interesting to note and people should be aware of is we've tried to do a good job preparing some good neighbor guidelines and working with the community to identify some of the things that we're seeing happen in residential neighborhoods that are disruptive either to the neighbors or are really a problem for wildlife.
Yeah.
So one of our good neighbor guidelines specifically talks about wildlife and not baiting wildlife into your yard with things like salt blocks so that your renters can get a photo of a moose. That's really, really not good for the wildlife.
Right.
And so we're trying to educate people on how to live with wildlife and what things are and are not acceptable.
Right. Yeah, that habituation to humans and luring them, into our residential areas is really ultimately it could be dangerous for us and deadly for them, really, in the end.
Yeah.
So let's see. In addition, one of the other cornerstones of the short-term rental program is the complaint system. So what's that all about?
So with the permitting system, we also have a 24/7 hotline available. So if one of the neighbors is impacted by short-term renters, say there's a noise complaint or a trash issue or a parking issue, if they're parking in the wrong spot or if they're parking in the street and blocking the way for their neighbors, you can call our hotline. We're all using the same hotline for all of the towns, and Summit County is using the same hotline just to make it easy so people don't have to look up on a map to see what jurisdiction they're in. So the hotline number is 970-368-2044. You can call 24/7. When you call, you will be given a number, you'll be given a case number. They'll record your complaint. They will contact the responsible agent right away, and then the responsible agent will have 60 minutes to respond with their intended resolution. And then if you want to check on the status of your complaint, if you haven't heard back, you can call back into the hotline, give them your case number, and just check on the status and see if there was any resolution.
Okay. And then if folks are not able to achieve a resolution through that process, through the responsible agent that the STR owner designates, then we have a formal complaint process as well, right?
We do, yeah. So If you call the hotline and you didn't have a resolution, and you called twice and you still have no resolution, then your option is to file a formal complaint with the planning department. You would send an email to str@SummitCountyCO.gov.
All right, perfect.
And that information's on our website.
Yes, yeah, like Danelle said, tons of information on the website, so definitely check that out if you have questions about how all of this operates.
Yeah.
And so you're planning to do some demos, so this is a new program that we're rolling out, so we're going to do some demos that help people through the permitting process, and those are happening later this spring?
Yeah, so we understand that there are property managers out there that have maybe 600 properties that they're going to have to fill out these applications for, and we want to make it easy and streamlined for them. So what we've thought of is to create a demo, invite all of these people who want to come and see. We're just going to walk them through step by step how to fill out the application, explain, what we're looking for each answer, and then have a time for questions in case we didn't answer everything.
Okay, great. And so as of this recording, we don't have those scheduled yet, but we'll put them on the website and also on the blog. And so for anyone who isn't already subscribed to the short-term rental blog, you can go subscribe to that on the website, and then you'll get an email update anytime there are new blog posts and there's new information about the program that we're sharing.
Yeah.
All right, great. Let's see, is there anything that we haven't hit on yet in terms of this new program, or have we kind of hit all the highlights?
Well, I think the big thing to know is just that, ever since December, we've just been working to develop this new system with the permitting system and the complaint system. We're rolling it out right now. Just went live March 21st. Everybody has till June 1st to submit their permit application. Mm-hmm. And one thing maybe just for people to be aware of is kind of during this window of time between late March and June, let's say 30th, when we hope to have all short-term rentals permitted, we are going to be operating that complaint hotline. Right. So neighbors in the county, residents in the county, you are going to be able to call the hotline or submit a complaint online, even if the short-term rental that you're complaining about doesn't have a permit yet, because it hasn't come to that June deadline yet. We are going to be logging all those complaints in and tying them to a property. Mm-hmm. So don't feel like you can't, use the complaint hotline now. We will do what we can to direct that issue to the responsible agent for that property if we have that information. If we don't have it yet, we will certainly log it, and we will certainly take it into account and talk to the owner, the applicant, whoever it might be, property manager, about these issues when we review their permit application when it does come in.
All right, sounds good. So again, for anyone who's looking for information on the program, the regulations, the complaint line, or looking to fill out that permit, it's www.SummitCountyCO.gov/STR, and everything is all located there for you. All right. Well, Kate and Danelle, thanks so much for coming into the SCTV studio today, and good luck over the next few months as you work to implement the STR program.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Julie.
We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to introduce you to your new Summit County Treasurer and Assessor.